Hi guys. So I got a request to discuss the solution to the Chapter 10 in-class controls exercise, and specifically not the entire solution, but really the controls portion of the solution. So in terms of number 1, invoices for goods sold are posted to incorrect customer accounts. The control that works for that, if you read through all of them, is actually Control C. The monthly statements are mailed to all customers with outstanding balances. All right. So reading back through, invoices for goods sold are being posted to an incorrect customer account. Then imagine we mail that customer, right? We mail them a statement with these incorrect invoices posted to it. What do? They pick up the phone and they're like, I did not buy that. I did not buy that stuff. Right? And they are going to be complaining to you until you take it off there, until you figure out what went wrong, where the error happened, and you are going to fix it. Now, Control C is definitely a lazy man's control because it relies on the customer to do the work for you, right? So it's kind of imperfect, and it's not the most timely control either, right? Because you are waiting to get that feedback from your customer. You may only send out these statements once a month, right? So not terribly timely and relies on customer. So not the best control, but it would get the job done. Number 2. Okay, so the risk here is that goods ordered by customers are shipped but are not billed to anyone. So what I really want here before I even start reading controls is I want a control that is going to compare shipments, right, goods shipped, to billings or goods billed or invoices. So I know something that's trying to basically compare things shipped to things billed or stuff that's equivalent to billings. Okay, so when I look down at Control G, it's saying, okay, shipping documents, stuff that's shipped, is compared to sales invoices, stuff that's billed, upon shipment. Okay, so Control G does exactly what I wanted to do. It compares the two things that are kind of not equal here. Right? The risk says these two things are not equal, so I want a control that is going to compare the two things that aren't equal. Right? Now, I also asked some of the people that were struggling with these to send me wrong answers, because I think it's really helpful to talk through the wrong answers. So my example wrong answer for number 2 is Control F, right? So let's look at Control F and see why that won't work. Okay, so Control F says daily sales summaries are compared with control totals of invoices. The problem with Control F is there's nothing in Control F that is going to compare back to shipments. So the real problem here is shipments don't match billings, right? And all Control F does is it compares things recorded in sales with invoice totals. Okay? So there's nothing in there that relates back to shipments, right? So you basically want to have the control language mirror what you're seeing in the risk language. All right. So number 3 is invoices are sent out for shipped goods. Okay, so now we're actually sending out those invoices, but then they're not being recorded in the sales journal. So this actually is the control we were just looking at, right? Control F, which was comparing the invoice totals to the totals in the sales journal, right? That's what we want to see. Because the issue here is invoices don't match what's in the sales journal. So I want a control that compares these two things, which is exactly what Control F does. Compares sales summaries in total to invoices in total. So then you would see the two totals don't match up, and then you could investigate further and find out specifically which ones didn't match up. All right, and so the example wrong answer here was answer G. So this person just kind of flip-flopped them. And for this one, they picked the shipping documents being compared with the invoices. And that won't work here because we need something that compares back to sales summaries. Okay, so Control 4 says invoices are sent for shipped goods now that we have them recorded in the sales journal too, but they are not posted to a customer account, okay, which essentially means they're not being posted to accounts receivable, right? So now I need something that compares either stuff recorded in the sales journal to stuff recorded in AR, or compares things invoiced to things recorded in AR, something along these lines. So let's see Control K. Amounts posted to AR are compared with controlled totals of invoices. Okay, so this accomplishes my goal of comparing things in AR to either things that are invoiced or things that are recorded in sales, which should be exactly the same. Right? Thanks to Control F, those two things should be exactly the same. So Control K is accomplishing that. My example wrong answer is Control J, which is sales orders are prepared for each customer order. Okay, so the issue with this is, remember, the sales order is not an invoice. The sales order is happening really early on in the process. So if you pick something like Control J, I would say go back and re-review the documents that were a part of the sales process, because the sales order is what you receive at the very beginning, right? The customer order comes in and I prepare the sales order, and that happens before goods are even shipped out. So this has nothing to do with after goods being shipped, the customer needs to be billed. Risk number 5. Credit sales are made to individuals with unsatisfactory credit ratings. Okay, so clearly we want, for this one, we want some kind of a control that is going to involve customers' credit being checked, something like that. Control I is customer orders are compared with an approved customer list. Okay, and it kind of is unsaid here, but clearly they're on the approved customer list because they have been kind of pre-approved in terms of their credit. So they're okay. They've been deemed okay to sell things to and extend credit to. So our example wrong answer here is Control M, which is pre-numbered credit memos are used to grant credit for goods returned. Okay, so again, I think if you picked this, you really need to go back and re-review the documents that are a part of this process, because that's the whole point to, at the beginning of these chapters, both chapter 10 and chapter 11, we do this whole thing where we're like, these are the documents that are a part of the revenues process or a part of the purchasing process. And the whole point of going through those documents is the names of those documents shows up in this control language. And so if you don't get what those documents are in the first place, when you see them referenced in the control language, you're not going to understand what the control is talking about. So in this case, what credit memos are used for is when a customer returns product or has damaged product and needs a refund. Okay, so credit memos are used to approve the fact that we are giving this customer a refund. So the credit in this case is credit on their account as in a refund. It's that kind of credit. It's not that we are authorizing them to extend credit to them like an accounts receivable balance. We're okay with giving them an accounts receivable balance. So two totally different types of credit and uses of the word credit. So definitely making sure you have a good handle on the different types of documents in the process is extremely key here. Okay, control 6 is goods are removed from inventory for unauthorized orders. So there's got to be some kind of control here saying something along the lines of you need an authorized sales order in order to remove things from inventory. Okay, and it says approved sales orders are required for goods to be released from the warehouse. So that makes sense here, right? And I don't have an example wrong answer for this one, so hopefully this one was clear to everybody. 7, goods shipped to customers do not agree with goods ordered by customers. All right, remember goods ordered by customers, that number will show up on the sales order. Goods shipped is going to show up on the shipping document. So we're looking for a control that is either going to say the sales order amounts, quantities on the sales order are agreed to quantities on the shipping documents, or something that says like quantities on the sales order are agreed to actual inventory being shipped out before it is shipped. We're looking for a control along those lines. Okay, so control D says shipping clerks compare goods received from the warehouse with approved sale orders. Okay, so this would accomplish that because they're looking at the goods sent over by the warehouse. Clearly they're in the box, in the package, ready to be loaded onto the truck and shipped out. They're comparing that with the sales order to make sure that the quantities match before it gets sent off to the customer. So this will help us here. All right, my example wrong answer is control N. Okay, goods returned for credit are approved by the supervisor of the sales department. Okay, so control N is dealing with products being returned. So this is kind of a fundamental difference between goods being shipped out in the first place, which risk 7 is talking about goods being shipped out in the first place. We know that because it's talking about what goods were ordered by customers, goods shipped by customers. Those terms all are referring to the initial order, things that are happening in the initial order process. And control N is talking about goods being returned. So that would be happening subsequent to all of this in the sales process, right? So it's way after the customer receives the goods, then they're going to be thinking about maybe returning things, right? So N might almost happen after they received the wrong quantity, maybe they want to return some of it, maybe then that needs to be approved. But that control is not going to help us stop from shipping the wrong amount in the first place. And that's what we're really looking for here, is a control that's going to help us stop shipping the wrong amount in the first place, like prevent this, not a control that's going to help us solve the problem when they return the extra stuff to us. So next up we have risk 8, which is customers' checks are received for less than the customer's full account balance, but the customer's full account balances are credited. Okay, so clearly when it's talking about the customer's account balances, it's talking about their account balances in the AR subledger. So this type of stuff is key because this is probably what's going to show up in the control language. So that's why I'm kind of rephrasing it. So I'm probably going to see something about matching up amounts credited in the AR subledger to check totals or totals on the deposit slip that day, right? Something along that line. Control P. Okay, total amounts posted to the AR ledger from remittance advices. Hopefully you remember what the remittance advice is. Right? It's that thing, I did that whole demonstration where I tore off the bottom of the invoice. And remember I talked about how that once you receive those payments in from customers, the remittance advice and the checks are usually separated. And one goes to the kind of the recording department, and the other, because it's custody, is going to go off to the department where it's going to be deposited and sent off to the bank. Okay, so total amounts posted to the AR subledger from remittance advices will be compared with the total from the bank deposit slip. Okay, so these are two independent totals, which is nice, right? One is from the person who prepares the bank deposit slip. They have all the checks that they received, they're totaling them up. One total is from the person with all the remittance advices. They're keying everything in to the actual records, and they are, saying debit cash, credit AR for all these payments from the remittance advice. So if they input an incorrect amount, then their totals would not match up with the totals on the deposit slip, right? And then we can investigate the difference, figure out where we went wrong. So P is exactly the type of control that will prevent this from happening. Or I say prevent it from happening, it really would catch the error and stop the error from, staying in the system for too long. I mean, it would happen, but I would catch it really quickly and fix it. Okay, so my example wrong answer here is Control T, which is the same employee who issues receiving reports evidencing actual return of goods approves the sales returns. Okay, so this is Control T is dealing with things being returned, just like purchase or customer bought something and then the customer sent it back. And it's actually, I think it's those returns being approved. So it has nothing to do, it's really unrelated to things being recorded in AR and things being credited to cash. It's just kind of unrelated to this part of the process. Because it's really like the sales returns and allowances part of the process, Control T is, whereas this risk and Control P are really related to the cash receipts process. So it's just two kind of totally different things. Risk 9 is different customer accounts are each credited for the same cash receipt. So once again, Control P, which is comparing the totals that are hitting the AR subledger to the totals on the bank deposit slip, will help you out here. right? Because I have an independent total on the bank deposit slip that is only going to count that cash receipt once. And then I'm going to be comparing that to the total on amounts that hit the AR subledger. That's where I counted it twice. And I'll be able to see these two totals don't match. Then I'll be able to go in and investigate and figure out what I did wrong, which accounts I incorrectly credited. All right, my example incorrect answer here is Control I. So again, this is a totally different part of the process, right? Because the customer order happens before I even ship out goods, right? Customer orders at the very beginning of the sales process, whereas Control P and this risk are dealing with the cash receipts portion of the process, which happens after the sale has happened. Okay, so hopefully this helped you understand this exercise. And I think the easiest way to do these, whether it's kind of open-ended like this, or whether it's multiple choice, is really to read the risk and design your ideal control up here before you even look at the answers. So hopefully you saw how to do that as I kind of talked through my ideal controls before I looked at the controls down here. And I assure you, I was not remembering what the controls said because I haven't looked at this since I did it last year. So yeah, I promise I wasn't doing that. What I was doing was just looking at the way the risk was worded and trying to come up with a control that would fix it. And that is definitely the best way to go about this. So you're basically designing your ideal perfect answer before you even start looking through the choices. And that's going to make your life a lot easier because otherwise you'll just be kind of overwhelmed with the different choices. And you can start getting distracted by the tricky language of some of the multiple choice questions as well. Whereas if I just read the question, come up with the answer I want to see, then it can cut down on the distractions in the answer choices and help me hone in on the right answer. All right, so hopefully this helped, and good luck with the assignments. All right, I will talk to you later. See you in the next recording. Stay safe.